Welcome home, brave heroes, to 2026. We're going to start this new year off right with a candid bang, with a relaxed, chill session of Q&A. Last week, I asked everybody, ask me anything, and I got a handful of questions. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to answer them, and I'm going to ask you a few of my own in an effort to get to know you better as well. This is how I want to start the new year. Just calm, collected, very casual. I got my Sonic the Hedgehog shirt on. Let's go. These are the vibes. This is what we're going to continue 2026 with. 2025 was all about challenge and honing our minds and bodies and basically getting used to getting beat up every day. But 2026, we're going to bat those challenges away like so many flies in our garbage can. I didn't really plan for this to be a motivational speech, so we're just going to drop that now. First question. Dave NOFS asks, do you want to maybe get together and play some D&D sometime? Absolutely. Let me just go get my special dice, and I'll be right back. Look, it's Jester Lavore. She's kissing Matt Mercer. Just to break in here real quick, one of the best ways to support the channel is through the Patreon. Not for nothing. I've got all kinds of quests, I've got posts, I've got videos on the back end. There's even a year-long merch loyalty program. Subscribe and you'll get merch every 3 months. You can get this lovely Nilbog mini print, this AshQuest mini print, this amazing AshQuest mug, which has the AshQuest shield on one side and Nilbog in goblin mode on the other. And at the end of the year, a t-shirt commemorating your survival. Thank you for your consideration. Back to the video. Oh, whew, that was close. I almost had to sit through a 3-hour-long session 0, only for 2 people to drop out of being able to play next month after 2 weeks of scheduling conflicts. Joking aside, if I had the right party, and especially the right GM who was chill, yeah, I'd give D&D another chance. We've got entire videos, actually, it's turning into an entire series on why I would rather play almost any other TTRPG, but I mean, it's all about the vibe of the table, really. Joel Ollier asks, what is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? Ash. Wow, these questions are easy. They're for babies. What is my quest? I was going to say to catch them is my real quest, to train them is my cause. And I came in with that mindset, and then I was like realizing that's not the line. It's to catch them is my real test, to train them is my cause. So I actually got out-ashed. My favorite color is red, probably the deeper, darker red that's behind the AshQuest shield logo. I don't like the primary color, red. If you've seen my desktop, you know, it's this nice red background here. But listen, I'm basically a shareholder at the Bridge of Death. I've got so many frequent flyer miles. I basically come through. The troll doesn't even look up. He's just like, how you doing? And I'm like, how you doing, Ned? It's not a troll, it's a knight. Well, whatever. All the bridges of deaths in the land. Thank you for your question. A Hero's Quest 4536 asks, I've got the base game of D&D, the fantasy adventure board game, and desperately want the expansions. Boy, I get that. What are your resources in getting copies of them for less than an astronomical price? There's one on this on eBay that's running upwards of $400. Any suggestions? There's no getting around the astronomical price, except board games are kind of like video games in that if you don't know, the prices actually fluctuate throughout the year. You can follow the trend of certain games and see them rise up and go down. There will be games that maintain a consistently high price that just don't budge at all for certain parts of the year, and then they sell like hotcakes in other parts of the year. So if you're patient, you can just wait for one to come along, and then once it's that time of year, you'll get lucky maybe and snag one of the early lower priced ones because they just aren't selling at the higher price anymore. Or go ahead and shoot the seller. Go ahead and shoot the seller an offer, even if you think that it's too low or they're not going to accept. If they accept offers, a lot of the times this will surprise you. And I don't mean to say that I just go lowballing everybody out there, but sometimes I shoot a price that I think is fair. And I'm like, if they don't accept it, it's fine. I can always shoot another offer later. And sometimes, lo and behold, they'll accept the offer. Now, that's just for listings where they have the offers feature turned on. Not everybody accepts offers. But other than that, if it's an astronomical price, just try not to. Make sure you have plenty of tissues after you make the purchase because you're going to be crying. That's all I can tell you. I don't have resources. I actually just use eBay, Mercari, and I will go to google.com, shopping.google, and I'll type in the board game name and I'll see what Google comes up with if it's a newer game, because sometimes there will be clearance sales from some shopping platforms, and I can get, like, I got a Judge Dredd from Rebellion. I got like 3 board games for $60, free shipping or something. I think it actually came from the UK. Also, be mindful of tariffs. If you're in the US, you're getting something from the UK these days, the tariffs are absolutely terrible. You may find that if there's a US seller who's selling a lot higher, that you'll actually pay less money. Just weigh the prices out. The last tip, you might be able to get lucky if you find a copy of the game on like eBay and there's only one picture and it's like a charity seller. They're not really going to go through all their inventory and verify for pieces and everything. But I've gotten lucky so many times just taking a gamble, hoping everything would be there, and everything was there. I've got Dungeon Quest from one of these charity sellers and I couldn't see all of the pictures, and it wasn't like a cheap auction, or at least it wasn't insignificant. It was like $120 or something. So I just hoped that everything was there, but everything was there. So it was absolutely worth it. When I bought the Eternal Winter expansion for D&D though, it's missing pieces. Exact same concept, but it's missing the Barbarian, and it's missing like one card, which is the most aggravating thing. And it's missing the Barbarian's hero board. Also, you could proxy the cards too. I mean, just take some of your D&D cards that are like more frequently occurring in the pack and just maybe sleeve all of your cards. And then for those that you have cards in excess of, or cards you'd be willing to drop in order to move away from the base game and play the expansion, convert those cards into the expansion cards, not by doing anything to the cards, just by like putting a sticky note or something into the sleeve with the card on the face side. So when you're drawing them, they're still random, but when you turn them around, you know that it's an Eternal Winter card now and not the actual card that's in the sleeve. Best of luck, and thank you for your question. Sog4607 asks, do you ever play with HeroQuest with random generator tables? If so, which one do you use? Do you mean with like a dungeon generation system, or like any table for anything? Usually no. I have solo played with Axion Quest. Otherwise, I have shoehorned a few tables that were intended for Dungeons and Dragons from stuff like, is it Jeff Ashford's or Jeff Ashworth's book about random scenario generation. There's all kinds of tables, and it's intended for D&D. And you can take any resource that's intended for D&D, and you're probably going to find tables. But if you sit down with them beforehand, you can just convert these over to HeroQuest tables. You can just take the treasure amounts and make them more sensible for what you'd find in a HeroQuest dungeon. You can take the treasures and you can convert them to items that you would buy at the armory or artifacts. You might have to be kind of careful. They might be pretty liberal with how they distribute treasures in that particular quest. And if you convert it to HeroQuest, it would make the players so unstoppably powerful. So you just have to kind of convert things as you go. If I made my own random tables, they would all be treasure-based. I might make a wandering monster table because I might not want the players to think, well, it's just a goblin or it's just an orc in this quest. Oh yeah? Oh yeah? All right. When you draw a wandering monster, you're going to roll a die. But I'm probably not actually going to make anything super complex. Just roll a combat die. And if you roll a skull, it'll be the wandering monster on the page. If you roll a black shield, maybe I'll decide that you don't even run into a wandering monster. And if you run into a white shield roll, then that's going to be double the wandering monster, something like that. Thank you for your question. Triceratopping asks, first of all, I want to say a huge thanks. Your channel got me to rediscover the joy of HQ. Thank you. That means my quest is going along just fine. Question 1. Oh boy. Favorite published quest and why? This one is hard because I think the best way to experience any quest in the game is with a group. So the quest dynamic and how much fun everybody is having, that's what can rank a quest really high in my book. Since I haven't been able to take an actual party past the base game, I'll say my favorite group quest is Melar's Maze, and there's a reason for this. By quest 5, people are consistently really getting into the game at this point, or they're starting to say, well, we're a little bit too powerful because they shared their gold and they're trying for this meta build. So we start to come up with homebrew stuff. I really start to get into my players' minds, usually around this point, to see what would be more fun, more acceptable. But my personal favorite quest, I love so many of the quests from Return of the Witch Lord. Now, you know what? Barak Tor, Barrow of the Witch Lord, is one of my favorites as well. I gotta go with base game. That's where I've got the memories. That's where I've actually got most of my gameplay experience. Least favorite? Question 2. Least favorite published quest and why? So it was the trial after using it to introduce players so much, but I've come to more see it as family now. Now I just really teach as I go if I'm going to run the trial. And I really try to hook people in with the immersion, because for me, the immersion and the engagement are the top two things for any HeroQuest session. I think those are the best routes to get into the fun of the game. That's just my opinion. I think Castle of Mystery is generally disliked, but if you have a fun party, it can be great to play. It's really too hard to say. It's probably a frozen horror quest by default, just because I really don't like the biome. I don't like the cold, and I don't like ice levels in games. I can't help it. If I get a group of players that far and we end up having a great time, I'll retract that answer. Question 3, any plans to ever cover Space Crusade? I did cover Space Crusade. I have an unboxing here on the channel. I also have a what my plans are to make an Adeptus Sororitas expansion for Space Crusade. I haven't gotten anything done with that. That's a project that has been on the back burner for so long, I kind of let it fall off the stove. I kind of completely forgot about it. So thank you for reminding me. I need to go back and add it to my project management chart, see what I need to do, and start getting things underway. It's basically going to be money and then just printing off adhesive stuff to stick over like the trays to make my own Adeptus Sororita. I got all the miniatures for it thanks to Bohemius. We engaged in a trade and I was able to get some awesome old Sisters of Battle miniatures. And I show those off in that Sisters of Battle expansion or Adeptus Sororitas expansion video. That's what I probably called it. So give it a search, give it a watch. Let me know what you think about that. And question 4, what is your preferred limit for complexity in HeroQuest? How much extra fan content is too much in your opinion? So I think we will all agree there is kind of a ship of Theseus with HeroQuest Homebrew. How much is too much is probably when it stops feeling like HeroQuest, or of course, if it stops being fun. The entire point of this is just to have fun. So if it's not fun, we're kind of missing the point. We're getting lost in the sauce. But in order to get more philosophical and start talking about more orthodox things related to HeroQuest, it's just when it stops feeling like HeroQuest to any of the players at the table, including the Zargon. When you think, I want to play HeroQuest, you've got a sort of archetype in your mind of how that experience should go. And if you get to the table and your Zargon starts pulling out all these skill decks and these roleplay tables and stuff, that's fine, because that might match up with your idea of HeroQuest, because maybe that's the session that you guys have been building together and growing into. But if it's not, and you're really just wanting to more play a very simple dungeon crawl, roll to move, attack anything that moves game, and you know you're not in the mood for something a little bit more thinky and having to roll a d20 and role play your character, well, that's when it's too much homebrew. So this is going to be like a your mileage may vary answer. Some of the homebrew systems out there do take it to a whole other level, and they do that very deliberately. They're like, here's what you can do, here's all the things you can do all at once, so do them, and here's how you can do them well. I mean, I respect that. But since this is a question for me, I think you can do a lot and still let it feel like HeroQuest, which is the challenge of any homebrewer. But you've got to be careful adding too much at once, because you're going to be the one, as the Zargon, who is responsible for scaling and balance. And a lot of these systems don't really take scaling into account. They're like, add this stuff because I thought it would be fun. HeroQuest already has a scaling challenge that needs to be addressed by you as Zargon when you're playing. Once the heroes get too powerful, they're steamrolling everything. How do you keep the game fun? That's a challenge you're going to have, even if you're not using any homebrew at all. And that's a challenge you're going to have because that's how the game is built. It's built to be totally accessible, so when you finish the base game, you can play any of the expansions. You do not have to play them in any particular order, and there's not really a marked precedent in terms of difficulty or progression that says you need to complete the base game and this expansion in order to play this expansion. Yes, the Frozen Horror is challenging, but no, you don't have to play other expansions to gear up to play it. And a homebrew system of, say, new power dice or artifacts or a progression system of some kind can really skew the rate at which the balance changes. So you've got to be on your toes for that. You've got to be on your toes. Your toes have got to be very sharp. You got to have toes like a steel trap. If I keep this up, Quentin Tarantino is going to come back. I think my personal limit is the Chaos Events deck. and Nehecaron's Power Dice. And then I'll try to look for something small but fun that the heroes can do in between quests. And then I'm good. That's 4 questions. So now I have to ask you guys, what's your favorite quest? What is your favorite quest? What's the one? Don't worry about like, though this one I would rate highly in terms of its theme, and also it's very balanced. Give me the quest that you've had the most fun playing with your party. What has that been like for you? I'd like to know, particularly because if it's a quest that's beyond the base game quest book and we start getting like consistent answers, I'm going to be very, very curious about that particular expansion in a group setting. I might start an expansion and just give my heroes an edge in terms of what equipment they start out with and things like that. I know a lot of you guys do the same thing if you're pulling in new players who weren't able to be in the original party. And there's all kinds of circumstance. I know that there's people who have absolutely started their heroes leveled up, so to speak, when they start an expansion, if they weren't already part of that crew that, defeated the Witch Lord at the end of the 14 quest game system. Roberto Gonzalez, 7026, asks, any homebrew ideas you use for your gaming sessions? I have implemented advantage throws when rolling for healing from a health potion and D20 for all attacks, both heroes and monsters. I believe Roberto was one of the kind people I ran into at Gen Con. So hello, brave sir. Also, if we're talking about homebrew ideas that I've come up with, generally, the first thing I actually homebrew at my table when my heroes are ready and they've learned the game systems and they're kind of figuring out the doorway combat tricks and all that, is I give goblins daggers. People think they know the goblin, and then there's a goblin that appears at the end of a corridor, or the goblin is right there and they attack it and miss, and they're like, I got you on this next turn. And then the goblin moves away and they're like, huh, you're running away? And then I throw the dagger. It's platinum. It's a great gaming moment. It's like, ha, you didn't expect that, did you? That dagger was like the Spanish Inquisition. And then the moment passes and now they know the goblins can throw daggers. I didn't know there were a lot of people that did like skeletons with diagonal attacks. So that's probably something I would start doing middle of the campaign. And then I would say the goblins can start coming in, attacking, and then running away. Although I think being able to throw a dagger is a little more surprising. But for the most part, I haven't needed to implement a lot of homebrew. Thank you for your question. Eudochio asks, what is your hero of choice and why? Hero? What do you take me for? Sargon all the way, baby. Puny, pathetic heroes. Okay, in all seriousness, this depends. So if we're going to play OG and we just have the original 4 heroes, I'll choose my hero last and I'll just adapt to whatever's going on. So if everybody skipped over the wizard, then I'll be the wizard. If everybody skipped over the dwarf, I'll be the dwarf. But if they're like, Ash, please pick first, then I'll probably pick the elf. I happen to like the elf due to having spells and no stiff equipment restrictions, but I'm going to have fun regardless of who I play. If it's any hero at all, I'm going to go with the knight. The knight was a fast favorite. I appreciate its supportive nature. I like the starting gear. I like the higher defense. I love the knight. If the knight is taken, I will play the rogue. We might have to get a couple of things, session 0, out of the way as far as like, can I throw infinite daggers? I know. These things should be clear, but I just want to clear it with Zargon. I want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm not going to play my rogue in a way that offends the Zargon. He's already trying to kill me. And yes, I will play the warlock, but only if I have a healer and only if I feel like the party can give me enough time, maybe 20 quests, maybe 30, and the right artifacts. I will turn the warlock into a nuke, and I will give her the Dublin, Ireland accent the entire time. Thank you for your question. Tony Hooper, BLT, asks, if there was one rule or mechanism you could bring into HeroQuest from any other game system, what would that be and why? Okay, I really like the speak system from classic Dragon Strike, which is the only Dragon Strike that exists. And I like the testing for feats, FEAT, feats of strength, feats of dexterity, not the foot kind. I love those things in Dragon Strike, and I actually like the variation on searching for traps that Dragon Strike has. I also like the trap die from the Dungeons & Dragons Parker board games. I think that I would incorporate these into here. I would make these canon somehow in a HeroQuest expansion in some form. This probably doesn't count, but actually, I would love for a HeroQuest expansion to introduce the concept of role-playing. And when I say role-playing, I'm not talking about Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not talking about skill checks. I'm not talking about D20s. I'm just talking about immersing yourself in your character. Maybe outlining a few factions, a few groups of people and saying, if you want to play somebody who's from the West, and then they might be named this way. If you want to play somebody from the East, they have at least a couple of different kingdoms here. They have infinite others. You can be whoever you want to be, have whatever name you want to have. But if you really want to root yourself in a campaign where you feel like you're playing a character from this universe, from an established place, then here's kind of the naming conventions, and here's how they act and what their society's like, and maybe encourage you basically to kind of role play your character. Why would you make these decisions? Obviously, it's all dungeon crawling. I mean, the reason that you're making these decisions is because you need to get into the dungeon because Mentor's got this voice in your head roaring about Lore Tome this, Gargoyle that. But there's still different ambitions there. There's different ways you could take that. Maybe you're on a revenge quest because Zargon's minions fell your brother. Maybe you are just in it for the gold and you're trying to collect as much gold as possible. Maybe I would incorporate these sort of character traits into a little bit more of an interactive system, mechanical or something. So whenever you're a treasure hunter and you find treasure, gather up all the treasure that you've got at the end of the quest. Maybe you know how to keep this safe instead of carrying it with you and potentially losing it if you die. So you put it into a storage. That way, if you die in the dungeon, it goes to the player that you roll up next somehow, because you're going to role play that character too. And you're going to say it was the merchant's brother or sister. I know I said merchant, but you're a treasure hunter. Whatever, you love coins. But the feats system and the speak system from Dragonstrike actually require this sort of element of roleplay, getting immersed and getting into character, not knowing if your character is going to survive another quest because of poor decisions or just dumb luck. But you said one rule or mechanism, so I guess I would say roleplay, and if that doesn't count, then we need to bring in some traps. We need some more traps. I'd probably bring in that trap die, and I would figure out how to make that HeroQuestable. What would you bring into HeroQuest? If you had just one thing, what would you bring in from any other game system established? Don't change the whole game. I asked for one thing. If you could bring one thing from another game system, what would it be? Thank you for the question. Brian Smith 844 asks, how often do you actually play HeroQuest with other folks at an in real life table? Who are they? Family members, good friends, complete strangers? No. Why you got to do it to me? So first of all, I don't think I played HeroQuest at all in 2025. I did get to play at Gen Con, and that was awesome. That was an amazing session. I played with people I will call friends. I played with complete stranger, and they put up with my terrible rolls as a barbarian, which is pretty characteristic of me, to be honest. My insufferable drunken attitude, that was roleplay. I wasn't actually drunk at the convention. It was roleplaying the drunk barbarian because it started out in a tavern. Put up with my checking of my camera and making sure my hand puppet wasn't, wandering off. Ash, it's your turn. My turn. I'll play with anybody. I will play HeroQuest with anybody. But my usual party makeup is my wife, my wife's sister, and her husband. And the four of us have a pretty great time. But we play a lot of different board games. So we actually will try to sit down and play the newest game that whichever one of us got. But we haven't been able to get together and play any games. Like I said, I don't think we got together at all in 2025, which is a real shame. So we just fell victim to scheduling conflicts, and those seem to continuously change due to new jobs and new positions with companies and stuff. Crooked Nose 2131 asks, some homebrew rules are trying to change HQ into a game that it simply isn't. For example, role-playing. At what point do you ditch HeroQuest and just play a different game that has the rules you already want incorporated into the game? The short answer is when it stops being fun. I mean, if you're playing HeroQuest and you're having to add all kinds of stuff to it, the bones of HeroQuest work with the skin of so many other things, not to be too graphic. You can pile stuff on to a very effective set of fundamental rules. But like going back to my Ship of Theseus statement, if you bring too much into it and it stops feeling like HeroQuest, it's not giving you the feeling of what HeroQuest accomplishes, which is quick dungeon crawler, or whatever you might describe it as for you, then maybe see if there's another game that scratches that itch. There could be a lot of reasons for that though, like if you can't afford Frosthaven, but you have access to the rulebook and there's some stuff in there that just seems like it would be so cool and so fun to have in your HeroQuest game. Maybe that's the rationale for bringing it in, even though HeroQuest doesn't have that stuff by default. Maybe I really don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons because I don't want to go through all the session zero and all of the hours of not really getting anything done because we start chatting about other stuff instead of focusing on the game, which could be any game. That's not a Dungeons and Dragons problem as much as it is just a table makeup in general. But at least with HeroQuest or any other board game, there's something right there in front of me, and the turns are progressing. And maybe we want roleplay in that, and to us, that is HeroQuest. I mean, I'm not doing an us versus you, obviously, but maybe we would like to have that in HeroQuest, and we don't want to play a game that has that natively because there are other reasons for not wanting to play that game. Maybe it lacks what we are looking for when we play a game like HeroQuest. This line's going to be different for everybody individually, and it's going to just kind of depend on your own experience, and you're kind of the best judge of character and when this stops feeling like this, and when you just go play Frosthaven if you can afford it, or when you just go play Dungeons and Dragons. I won't ditch HeroQuest to play a different game. I'll just keep adjusting the rules, and we might take some stuff back out. I really want to make sure I enjoy it as much as possible as the creators intended. And when I say creators, I mean the quest authors of whoever's made that expansion. I'm not going to go into Joe Manganiello's Crypt of Perpetual Darkness with all this homebrew and all this stuff, knowing that he has fine-tuned an experience, or Teo Saperia, or anybody, and kind of bastardize what they have created with my own without really getting to experience what it is that they've created. I mean, if somebody brings in a power dice weapon or two, that's one thing, but I'm really going to try to cut it very close to the edge and just play HeroQuest as it was intended, with minimal homebrew, or just a couple of things that I mentioned earlier. It was a very wordy answer for a very simple question. I apologize, but thank you for the question. 46&2 asks, what are your top 5 all-time favorite TV shows? I want you to know that this question brought me all kinds of stress and grief, and I agonized over what the answer was because I realized I don't actually know. Like, I have a list that's my go-to. If you're asking me for a top 20, that's pretty easy to throw together. But then I was like, oh no, how do I approach this now? Am I going to be fatalistic and elitist? Am I going to say, I can only have 5 and the rest of them die? Do I get trapped on a remote island, my only companion, a slowly deflating beach ball on which I have drawn a face to keep me company? And then I also have a screen and a device to play media, and I happen to have these 5 medias with me. Don't worry about that. Yeah, let's go that route. Well, it's going to have to be something that I can watch over and over and over again and actually never tire of, because I feel like it's part of my soul. But I'm going to go ahead and let you guys in on how I do what I am. I had to dig deep. So when you say TV show, that does make me think of the days before streaming, but I'll talk about streaming as well. So definitely Batman, the animated series. That's my number 1. It always has been. It always will be. Nothing beats Batman TAS, man. Kevin Conroy is my Batman. Christian Bale is awesome. I love the Dark Knight trilogy of movies from Christopher Nolan. I particularly love Batman Begins. I will watch that movie over and over again and never get tired of it. I love Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, but I really just love Batman TAS. That is the fundamental Batman experience, in my opinion, and Kevin Conroy is legendary as Batman for me. Yes, we're counting cartoons. Kind of have to. Number 2 is Neon Genesis Evangelion. I will take no questions, but it is my favorite anime TV series of all time. I will watch the 26 original episodes over and over and not get tired of it. I'll laugh. I will cry. I love Evangelion deeply. It is ingrained in my soul. After much thought, I decided that Gotham deserves to be on this list because of how happy I was that I had a Batman show that I actually liked with a cast of characters that I actually liked. I loved Gotham. Yeah, Batman makes the list twice, basically. But Ben McKenzie is like a stellar Commissioner Gordon in his younger days. I never thought, I just never thought. I never thought. But it is. I really highly enjoyed every moment of Gotham. There were some problems. I'm not going to say it was perfect. Like, it did have some flaws. Season 5 obviously was rushed. They did pay a cheesy homage to Batman in the last episode. I appreciated it. I knew it was going to be silly, but they were just having fun, and you could tell they were just having fun. The whole Jerome storyline with the twin would really get convoluted from time to time. It was nuts. They did a lot of scene switching, which is a thing that I hate there close to the end. And there are some characters you could just take out completely. Like, I got really tired of Fish Mooney. And anyway, the show does have some of my favorite versions of characters in the Batman mythos. Obviously, my favorite, Leslie Tompkins, Miranda Baccarin, she's lovely as Lee Tompkins. When she appeared on the screen, I had this stupid grin on my face, and then I was like, wake up, Ash. And I looked over, and my wife also was like, wow, she's pretty. I love Gotham. Okay, the last 2 spots are open, but I don't really have an easy way to fill them. So we're just going to go into this laundry list of stuff that I really like. Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. I love William Street Entertainment humor from way back when it was just Ghost Planet. I was on the edge of my seat every square centimeter of a second during Squid Game. I loved Squid Game. I probably don't have to ever watch it all over again, though, so it's going to be an honorable mention. The 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is my favorite Turtles. I know that's going to be blasphemous for the other people who watched the 80s TMNT growing up, but 2012 is a love letter to not just that cartoon, but the entire franchise as a whole, and it's just very smartly written. It's got my favorite versions of the Turtles. I love the 2012 TMNT. X-Men, the animated series, is probably going to take one of those 2 spots. It was my favorite cartoon as a kid at one point, and I loved the maturity of it. Conan the Adventurer, it's just fun. It's just fun. I can watch Conan today, and every minute I'm having fun. I'm just absorbed, having fun, eating my popcorn, laughing, trying to think of how to make it into for a dungeon crawler. Star Trek: The Next Generation might take that other spot. It's such a big, vast body of work, and it had such great writers. We're not going to get into the whole which Star Trek is best, Picard versus Kirk thing. I just think Star Trek: The Next Generation was more of the kind of Star Trek that I like. There's going to be a spectrum of Star Trek for sure. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a series that I happen to really, really like too. If it's not tied with TNG, it's either slightly above or slightly below. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with La'an. Sonic the Hedgehog, the 90s TV show, the serious one with the Freedom Fighters and Princess Sally. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog I was watching at the same time, and I was amazed that there were 2 separate cartoons going on at the same time, with the same voice actors and everything. Jaleel White is the best Sonic, but I loved how serious and in continuity the Sonic the Hedgehog TV show was versus Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was basically like Sonic in Looney Tunes, throwing dynamite at Robotnik, which is fine. That's fine. Animaniacs, classic cartoon. Honorable mentions here, The Tick, Spartacus, Blood and Sand, as well as Gods of the Arena. I'm actually kind of mad at how good the newest Spartacus is. Rise of Asher, when I heard about it, I'm like, nobody asked for that. That's so stupid. And Asher, he's such an unlikable character. This is going to be so dumb. They come back after all this time, and this is what they have to offer. And then I watched it, and I was so mad because it might be my favorite Spartacus out of all of them. It's ridiculous. It doesn't pull any punches. It is just as offensive and terrible as all of the other ones. Conan O'Brien, the late night show with the actual really tall Irish guy. I loved watching that as a kid. Conan is still one of my favorite talk show host personalities. Thundercats, both the old cartoon and the 2011 version. I was so mad when they wordlessly canceled Thundercats in 2011. My wife and I were just like exasperated. We were so devastated, and it was such a stupid reason. They could have continued on with that, but Mum-Ra, the Ever-Living, is one of the most badass and awesome villains out of all cartoons. Masters of the Universe, I remember liking it a lot, but it's hard to watch these days. Adventure Time definitely deserves an honorable mention. I watched all of Adventure Time with the family. We all got together and watched it. I have nothing but good memories of Adventure Time. It's really weird in spots, but it's a good time. I need to watch more Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'd like to finish up The Boys. Invincible might actually end up making its way into my top 5 at some point because it's just been so good. The Amazing Digital Circus is a guilty pleasure obsession of mine. It's really hyper and kind of all over the place, but it's surprisingly deep. We'll see how these last 2 episodes go, but I think I'm going to be devastated when the show ends. Almost made it to the top 5, but they had such terrible endings, in my opinion, that they'll never get there. Game of Thrones, loved it, hung on for every single minute until that last season. The Walking Dead, hung on to it for every minute right up until Negan and his boys came in. I don't know. I always knew it was going to happen. And just after it happened, it wasn't fun anymore. American Horror Story, great anthology series. I don't know how horror it is. It's more campy and quirky than anything. But there are some of those seasons that rank really high for me, and most of them rank kind of low. It's like, why am I watching this crap? And I don't know why, but I didn't care for Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. I guess I just wasn't the target audience for Kevin Sorbo. And I didn't really like Xena at the time. And I still don't really know if I like either of those. But I will say I'm kind of more distracted if my wife puts Xena on and she starts watching it. Now I'm starting to more appreciate the direction and stuff that Xena went, but I can't stand Kevin Sorbo, so I still can't watch Hercules. Thank you for your question. What's your favorite TV show? Just give me any one of your top 10. Jeff Whitty Art says, I think it's time to reassess the rankings of all the playable characters in the game, probably a ranking of hireable mercenaries too, and maybe rank the magic sets in order of power/utility. Okay, but you want questions. So 1, what's the best looking playable character of the expansion characters from 2025 expansions? And 2, of the 2025 expansions, which one was the best expansion? After a cursory search just to make sure, yes, First Light and Crypt of Perpetual Darkness were the only HeroQuest releases in 2025, unless you want to count Wizards of Morcar. I would like to push Wizards of Morcar off onto 2026 so that I don't have to wrestle with all of the magic sets and everything and look into the characters and all of that. I'm still waiting on getting my copy before I delve into that so I can have genuine surprise reactions here on the channel. But between First Light and Crypt, I'm probably going to have to rank First Light higher, even though it's not an expansion, it's a game system. And if you do discount it for not being an expansion, then Crypt wins by default. And then the best looking playable character of the expansion characters. Crypt didn't come with anybody new, and technically First Light isn't an expansion, but I happen to like the wizard sculpt probably the best. Based on those technicalities, it's a hard question to answer, or at least it's not a question that has as interesting of an answer as it would be if we went back to 2024 or 2023, which we won't do because those were not in the question. But thank you for your question, Jeff Whitty. Sack of Ham asks, how many goats can you carry up a hill while running? I probably need to inquire about the grade and size of the hill, as well as the size, weight, and temperament of the goat in question. Safely, 1 goat every time, no matter what the breed. 2 might be possible. 3 is right out unless they are pygmy goats. And then I'm going to carry 1 under each arm, and I'll go ahead and sling 1 over the back of my head. And I'll be running up that hill like Kate Bush with my goats to make a deal with God. That sounds very ominous. Renarius Ash Kevron asked, I've noticed a glitch in Quest 9 of Return of the Witch Lord. Only way to get to Cassandra is through the secret door. That's her only escape route. Don't know if I got a misprint. The question could answer is how to address this as Zargon. So I answered this in the questions, in the comments, because I thought this isn't going to make it into the video. But I mean, why not though? Why not? I didn't gatekeep anything. The door's absence is an error. It was overlooked by Avalon Hill when they were printing that quest. The original quest does have a door leading to the lower section of rooms. It's pretty equidistant from both the top section of rooms door, as well as the quest door. I'm going to flip it for you. That leads into the initial east corridor that begins the quest. So there does need to be a door there, actually. That's rules as written in the original anyway. Indy51 asks, why HeroQuest? Why not HeroQuest? I got the game when I was at the impressionable age of 12. I knew that I loved fantasy, but I didn't really have anything that was tangible that was fantasy, gaming related wise. Then I got it, and it became the central piece of all of my gaming sessions with my brother. Either we would play it as is, or we would incorporate the orcs and the skeletons into other games that we had on the floor. I've talked about this a few times, but like I would get Jenga blocks and crayons sometimes and just build out these 2-dimensional levels, and he would be the player and I would be like the GM or the person controlling all the monsters in whatever scenario. Sometimes we'd use dice. Sometimes it would be just taking the miniatures and whoopsie fighting one another until one died, and then the game would continue. The path would be opened up, get to the next boss. These days, I'm still fascinated by older fantasy, whether it's in book or game or TV or comic or whatever form. But I guess there's a lot of games that I never knew existed back then that's really drawn me back into it and gotten me sort of obsessed. The reason that I'm so into HeroQuest now is because, well, this is a big part of my childhood, and suddenly there's a resurgence. There are expansions being made, and it's kind of like watching a game development happening in real time, which from Amalgamash, you know I'm very big into game development. It's an old game, but it's a new game too, with people carefully crafting the expansions, and then the homebrewers come in, and it's all great game dev. Indy also asks, do you think there will be more HeroQuest now that Wizards of Morcar has been released, and what would it be? I have every faith there will still be more HeroQuest expansions. Avalon Hill members are pretty positive. They indicate that this is definitely not the end, that there's plenty more to go, and I tend to trust and believe that, as I have this whole time, and I haven't been let down yet. There are still archives of material from which to draw that haven't been released, but also the people at Avalon Hill are talented, and they know how to select talent and make great expansions. So there are still some unused biomes. There's still plenty of places the heroes could go that they haven't been in an official capacity, at least yet. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with, because I know it's going to be something that's really good and scalable and takes into account all of the stuff that people have been doing with their games in a homebrew fashion for years, if not decades, because that has definitely been the trend of everything they come out with so far. In the nick of time, Eric $3296 asks, what are your favorite third-party / homebrew HeroQuest minis that come with character cards? This is a great question, but the only one that I know of that doesn't use generative AI or AI assistance for the character card art is the Cleric from B3D Miniatures. And the card art was done by Jeff Whitty Art, and it looks great. And the sculpt looks really nice as well. If I was going to go out and hunt down something and buy it, it would be the Cleric. That implies I don't have the Cleric, because when I was ready to buy it, I couldn't find it. And so I don't even know if it's available or if the company is still around. But if it is, and if it is, then that needs to make its way back onto my buy list. I haven't really thought about it until this question. So thank you for reminding me it exists. There's a lot of other third-party miniatures and cards, but a lot of them are embroiled in the AI generation slop for the card art. And I just, if they didn't bother to make it, why would I be bothered to use it or buy it or what have you? There are a lot of cards that have been around for a long time because of the kind contributions of very creative people on Ye Olde Inn who have been posting their works for decades. But this question is about homebrew HeroQuest minis that come with character cards. And so it is answered as it is a purely physical affair. Thank you very much for the question. And one more question from Eric $3296. What kind of painting style do you like for HeroQuest? More gritty and serious, or more in line with the canon family-friendly cartoony look? This might seem like a cop-out answer, but if I were going to paint my HeroQuest minis, I would do so that's kind of in the middle of those two things, so that they would be versatile enough to use in a campaign setting where you're trying to introduce kids to the game, and you want everything to kind of pop and be friendly enough for them to handle and be characteristic enough for them to immediately recognize the character and kind of sort of build that connection and that relatability with the character in some way. And they would be capable of serving in very serious and or gritty scenes. I would actually love to see, and I know that they're out there somewhere and I just haven't taken the time to look, but I would love to see HeroQuest miniatures painted in the style of the Warhammer miniatures that are done by Games Workshop. The paint jobs that they give those miniatures, the airbrushing, I want to see that technique on a HeroQuest mini, and I want to see multiples of it, all kinds of different versions, different color palettes. That's what I wanted. That would be eye candy for me. That's what I want to see. Thank you very much for the question. And with that hour-long question-answer session, I do believe I've answered everything. What about you? Why HeroQuest? There's plenty of folks who have experienced HeroQuest as a kid, and something about it was magical enough to get them to return in 2025 or 2024, or will be in 2026 or beyond. But why? What is it about the game that has you selecting it for game night? Little question from me for everybody. Why not play Maladum, or why not play Carcassonne or Alter Quest or, I don't know, Gloomhaven? If you ended up commenting like 3 or 4 times in the comments below, that's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you very much. Be sure to like this and share it and all that. Subscribe if you haven't. This is not the typical kind of content I put out, but with 2026 here, it's really hard to say what will be the typical kind of content that I put out. Just know that we are going to be doing a lot of physical board game focused content in some way, shape, or form. Take a look at the playlists if you are new here, and you'll get a good idea of how I sort my content and kind of what my overall Venn diagram of contents are. And that will be all from me. So Thank you very much for your very, very kind attention. And you can actually ask me anything at any time in any video in the comments section, and I'll do my best to get back and answer. But this felt a little bit more fun, a little bit more personal and personalized. For me anyway, and I hope you thought so too. I'll see you in the next exciting adventure, brave heroes. Thank you once again, and I bid you farewell for now. Bye-bye.